You know, there's something truly remarkable that happens when we stop running from our own minds. When we finally sit down, take a breath, and really look at what's going on inside us, not with judgment, not with fear, but with genuine curiosity and kindness. And today, I want to share something with you that could completely transform the way you experience your life. Something that the Buddha taught over 2,500 years ago, yet feels more relevant now than ever before. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a vast ocean. On the surface, there are waves, storms, moments of calm, moments of chaos. Most of us spend our entire lives riding those waves, tossed around by every thought, every emotion, every fleeting sensation. But what if I told you there's a way to dive deeper? A way to see beneath the surface and understand the very nature of these waves themselves? That's exactly what we're going to explore together. The Buddha spoke of 4 foundations of mindfulness, 4 ways of anchoring our awareness in the present moment. We observe the body, we observe our feelings and sensations, we observe the mind itself. And then there's this 4th foundation, something profound and transformative. It's called dhammānupassanā, the contemplation of phenomena, the contemplation of the very nature of reality itself. And before you think this sounds too philosophical or abstract, stay with me, because what we're about to explore is deeply practical and incredibly powerful for your everyday life. Before we dive in, if you're finding value in this content, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This channel is all about bringing ancient wisdom into modern life, and your support helps us reach more people who are searching for peace and clarity. And if this resonates with you, drop a comment below sharing your own experience with mindfulness. I read every single one, and I love hearing from you. So, let's talk about what this 4th foundation really means. When the Buddha taught about contemplating phenomena, he wasn't asking us to become philosophers or scholars. He was inviting us to see things as they truly are, to understand the patterns and principles that govern our experience. Think of it like this. If the first 3 foundations teach us to observe the instruments in an orchestra, the body, the feelings, the mind, then the 4th foundation teaches us to understand the music itself, the underlying harmony and structure that makes it all make sense. The Buddha said, and I'm paraphrasing here from the ancient texts, that when we contemplate phenomena, we're observing things in terms of the Dhamma, in terms of the truth. We're looking at the 5 hindrances that cloud our minds, the 7 factors of enlightenment that liberate us, the 4 noble truths that explain suffering and its end. But here's what's beautiful about this teaching. You don't need to memorize lists or become a Buddhist scholar. You just need to start paying attention in a new way. Let me share a story with you. There was once a Zen master named Yunmen who lived in ancient China. One day, a student came to him desperately seeking enlightenment. The student had been practicing meditation for years, studying texts, following all the rules, but still felt lost and confused. He asked Yunmen, "Master, what is the essence of the Buddha's teaching?" And Yunmen, in typical Zen fashion, simply replied, "Every day is a good day." The student was baffled. He expected some profound philosophical answer, some secret teaching. But Yunmen was pointing to something much simpler and much more profound. He was saying, wake up to this moment, to this day, to this life exactly as it is. That's what the 4th foundation of mindfulness is really about. It's about waking up to the patterns and principles that are already operating in your life, right now. in this very moment. When you're stuck in traffic and feeling frustrated, that's not just random suffering. There's a pattern there. You're experiencing what the Buddha called dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness that comes from wanting things to be different than they are. When you're scrolling through social media and feeling inadequate, that's another pattern. You're caught in comparison, in craving, in the illusion that happiness exists somewhere outside yourself. The contemplation of phenomena teaches us to recognize these patterns, not to judge ourselves for having them, but to understand them so deeply that they lose their power over us. It's like learning to read the weather. Once you understand how clouds form, how pressure systems work, you're not surprised when it rains. You don't take it personally. You simply see the natural unfolding of causes and conditions. Now, the Buddha was incredibly systematic in how he taught this fourth foundation. He didn't just say, pay attention to stuff. He gave us specific frameworks, specific lenses through which to observe our experience. And the first of these frameworks is what he called the 5 hindrances. These are the mental states that block our clarity, that keep us from seeing things as they truly are. And I guarantee you've experienced every single one of them, probably in the last 24 hours. The first hindrance is sensory desire. This is that restless craving for pleasant experiences, that constant reaching for the next thing that will make us feel good. It's checking your phone every 5 minutes. It's that third cookie you didn't really need. It's the endless scroll through shopping websites. The second is ill will, that aversion and anger that arises when things don't go our way. Road rage, resentment toward a coworker, irritation at the person chewing too loudly next to you. The third is sloth and torpor, that heavy, sluggish feeling when we just can't seem to get motivated or engaged. The fourth is restlessness and worry, that anxious, scattered energy that keeps us from settling down. And the fifth is doubt, that paralyzing uncertainty that makes us question everything, including whether any of this practice is even worth it. Here's what's revolutionary about the Buddha's teaching. He's not telling you to get rid of these hindrances. He's telling you to see them clearly, to recognize them when they arise. Because once you can see them, once you can name them, they start to lose their grip on you. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The darkness doesn't fight back, it simply dissolves in the presence of awareness. I remember when I first started practicing mindfulness seriously, I was shocked by how often I was caught in these hindrances without even knowing it. I'd sit down to meditate, and within 30 seconds, I'd be planning my grocery list, sensory desire, thinking about what I wanted to eat later. Or I'd be replaying an argument from earlier in the day, caught in ill will. The practice wasn't about achieving some perfect state of calm. It was about seeing these patterns with clarity and compassion. There's another Zen story I love about a student who went to his master complaining about his wandering mind. "Master," he said, "every time I sit to meditate, my mind is like a wild monkey jumping from branch to branch. I can't control it. I'm a failure at meditation." The master smiled and said, "Ah, but you've made great progress. Before, you had a wild monkey mind and you didn't even know it. Now you have a wild monkey mind, and you're aware of it. That awareness itself is the practice." This is the heart of contemplating phenomena. We're not trying to become perfect. We're trying to become aware. We're learning to see the patterns, the hindrances, the habits of mind that keep us suffering. And in that seeing, in that clear recognition, transformation begins to happen naturally. So, as you go through your day today, I invite you to start noticing. When you feel that pull toward your phone, that restless craving for stimulation? Can you pause for just a moment and recognize it? Can you say to yourself, there's sensory desire? When someone cuts you off in traffic and you feel that surge of anger, can you recognize there's ill will? You're not judging yourself. You're not trying to suppress these feelings. You're simply seeing them clearly, like a scientist observing natural phenomena. And here's what starts to happen when you practice this way consistently. You begin to see that these mental states are not you. They're just weather patterns moving through the vast sky of your awareness. They come, they go, they change. And you, the awareness that observes them, remains steady and clear. The Buddha taught that this kind of clear seeing leads to freedom. And that freedom isn't some distant goal you'll achieve after years of practice. It's available right now, in this very moment, when you bring clear awareness to whatever is arising in your experience. The Buddha described this beautifully when he said that a practitioner observes phenomena in phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, and mindful, having put away covetousness and grief for the world. Notice those words, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful. This isn't passive observation. This is engaged, alive, present awareness. Now, while the 5 hindrances show us what blocks our clarity, the Buddha also taught about what cultivates it. He called these the 7 factors of enlightenment. And they're not some mystical attainments reserved for monks in caves. They're qualities you can develop right here, right now. In the midst of your busy, complicated, beautiful life. And what's fascinating is that these factors naturally arise when we practice the contemplation of phenomena with consistency and care. The first factor is mindfulness itself. That quality of present moment awareness we've been talking about. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built. Think of mindfulness as the flashlight that illuminates the path. Without it, we're stumbling in the dark. With it, we can see where we're going and what we're working with. And here's something important to understand. Mindfulness isn't about being serious or somber. It's about being awake, alive, fully present to this precious moment of your life. The second factor is investigation, that quality of curiosity and inquiry. When you're practicing the contemplation of phenomena, you're not just passively watching your experience. You're actively investigating it. You're asking questions. What is this feeling? Where does it come from? What happens if I don't react to it immediately? What is the nature of this thought? This investigation isn't intellectual analysis. It's a direct, experiential exploration of your moment-to-moment reality. There's a wonderful story about the great Zen master Hakuin. A student once asked him, "Master, what is the most important thing in Zen practice?" Hakuin held up his hand and said, "Listen to the sound of one hand clapping." The student was confused, as students often are with Zen koans. But Hakuin wasn't trying to confuse him. He was inviting him to investigate directly, to go beyond conceptual thinking and experience reality for himself. That's what investigation means in the context of contemplating phenomena. It's not about finding the right answer. It's about diving deeply into the question of your own experience. The third factor of enlightenment is energy or effort. Now, this might seem contradictory. Isn't mindfulness supposed to be effortless? Well, yes and no. The awareness itself is natural and effortless, but cultivating it, especially in the beginning, requires energy and commitment. It's like learning any new skill. At first, you have to put in effort to remember, to practice, to bring your attention back when it wanders, to show up on your meditation cushion even when you don't feel like it. But over time, that effort becomes lighter, more natural, until mindfulness itself becomes effortless. I remember when I first started practicing, I would set reminders on my phone throughout the day, little notifications that would pop up saying, "Are you present?" or "What are you aware of right now?" It felt artificial at first, almost silly, but those little prompts helped me develop the habit of checking in with my experience, of investigating the phenomena of my mind and body throughout the day. And gradually, I didn't need the reminders anymore. The practice had become woven into the fabric of my daily life. The fourth factor is joy or rapture. And this might surprise you. We often think of meditation and mindfulness as serious, heavy practices. But the Buddha taught that genuine practice brings joy, not the superficial happiness that comes from getting what we want, but a deeper joy that arises from being fully present, from seeing clearly, from touching the truth of our experience. When you're no longer fighting with reality, when you're no longer constantly trying to make things different than they are, there's a natural ease and lightness that emerges. That's the joy the Buddha was talking about. Think about it this way. Most of our suffering comes from resistance. We're resisting what is, wanting it to be different, believing it should be different. But when we practice contemplating phenomena, we're learning to meet our experience with acceptance and curiosity rather than resistance. And in that acceptance, there's tremendous relief. There's joy. Not because everything is perfect, but because we're no longer at war with ourselves and our lives. The fifth factor is tranquility or calm. As we continue to practice, as we become more familiar with the patterns and phenomena of our minds, a natural settling occurs. It's like a snow globe that's been shaken. At first, everything is swirling and chaotic, but if you just set it down and leave it alone, the snow gradually settles, and you can see clearly through the glass. That's what happens with consistent practice. The mind settles. Not because we're forcing it to be calm, but because we're no longer constantly stirring it up with our reactivity and resistance. The sixth factor is concentration or focus. This is the ability to stay with your object of meditation, to maintain continuity of awareness. In the context of contemplating phenomena, concentration means being able to observe the arising and passing of mental states without getting lost in them, without being swept away by them. It's like watching clouds pass through the sky. You see them, you recognize them, but you don't chase after them or try to hold on to them. And the seventh factor, the culmination of all the others, is equanimity. This is that beautiful balance of mind that can meet all experiences, pleasant and unpleasant, with the same steady, clear awareness. Equanimity doesn't mean you don't care or that you become cold and detached. It means you're no longer yanked around by every passing phenomenon. You can feel deeply, love deeply, engage fully with life. But you're not identified with the constant ups and downs. You've found a stable center within yourself. Now, let me share something really practical with you. The Buddha didn't just teach these factors as abstract concepts. He gave us specific practices for developing them, and one of the most powerful is contemplating the aggregates. This might sound technical, but stay with me because this is incredibly useful for everyday life. The Buddha taught that what we call self, or I, is actually made up of 5 aggregates or bundles of experience. There's form, which is the physical body and material reality. There's feeling, which is the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral tone of our experience. There's perception, which is how we recognize and label things. There's mental formations, which includes all our thoughts, emotions, and habitual patterns. And there's consciousness, which is the basic awareness that knows all of this. Why is this important? Because most of our suffering comes from identifying with these aggregates, from believing that they constitute a solid, permanent self. We think, I am angry, I am anxious, I am not good enough. But when you practice contemplating phenomena, you start to see that these are just temporary formations arising and passing in awareness. Anger arises, anger passes. Anxiety arises, anxiety passes. Thoughts of inadequacy arise, thoughts of inadequacy pass. None of it is who you fundamentally are. There's a teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, that I find incredibly helpful. He would often say, "You are not your anger, you are not your fear, you are not your sadness. These are just visitors passing through. You are the spacious awareness that can hold all of these visitors with compassion." That's the contemplation of phenomena in action. You're seeing these mental and emotional states as phenomena, as passing events, rather than as your identity. Let me give you a real-life example. Imagine you're at work and your boss criticizes a project you've been working on for weeks. Immediately, there's a physical reaction. Your heart rate increases, your face gets hot, your stomach tightens. That's the form aggregate. Then there's a feeling tone, definitely unpleasant. That's the feeling aggregate. Your mind labels the situation. This is unfair. I worked so hard. My boss doesn't appreciate me. That's perception and mental formations. And underneath all of it is consciousness, the awareness that knows all of this is happening. Now, if you're not practicing contemplation of phenomena, you get completely identified with this experience. You become the hurt, the anger, the resentment. You might snap at your boss, or stew in bitterness for days, or start questioning your entire career. But if you've been practicing, something different can happen. You can observe the whole process unfolding. You can notice the physical sensations without being overwhelmed by them. You can recognize the unpleasant feeling tone without needing to immediately make it go away. You can see the thoughts arising, "This is unfair, I'm not appreciated," and recognize them as thoughts, not necessarily as truth. And here's what's powerful. In that space of clear seeing, you have choice. You're no longer on autopilot, reacting from old patterns and conditioning. You can respond with wisdom. Maybe you take a breath and ask your boss for specific feedback. Maybe you recognize that their criticism, while painful, has some validity. Maybe you realize that your self-worth isn't dependent on your boss's approval. The situation hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has completely transformed. This is what the Buddha meant when he taught about contemplating phenomena. You're learning to see the components of your experience clearly, to understand how suffering is constructed moment by moment. And in that understanding, you find freedom. Not freedom from difficult experiences, because those are part of life, but freedom in how you relate to them. If you're finding this helpful, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What patterns have you noticed in your own mind? What phenomena keep arising in your experience? Share your insights below, and let's learn from each other. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next parts of this series. The contemplation of phenomena also includes observing what the Buddha called the sense bases. The sense bases are simply the 6 ways we interact with the world: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Yes, the Buddha included thinking as a sense, which is brilliant when you think about it. Just as the eye contacts visual objects, the mind contacts mental objects, thoughts, memories, ideas. And just as we can be mindful of what we see or hear, we can be mindful of what we think. Now, why did the Buddha emphasize observing the sense bases? Because this is where so much of our suffering begins. It's not the objects themselves that cause suffering, it's what happens in the contact between our senses and those objects. It's the chain reaction that follows. You see something beautiful, and immediately there's desire, craving to possess it. You hear criticism, and immediately there's aversion, the urge to defend or attack. You smell food when you're trying to diet, and there's that internal struggle between wanting and restraining. The Buddha described this process with remarkable precision. He said that when the eye contacts a visual form, eye consciousness arises. From that contact comes feeling, pleasant or unpleasant. From feeling comes craving, either to get more of the pleasant or to get rid of the unpleasant. From craving comes clinging, and from clinging comes suffering. It's like a chain reaction, one domino knocking down the next, and it all happens so fast that we usually don't even notice it. But here's the beautiful thing. When you practice contemplating phenomena at the level of the sense bases, you can actually see this chain reaction in slow motion. You can catch it at various points and choose not to let the next domino fall. You don't have to go from pleasant feeling to craving. You can simply enjoy the pleasant feeling without needing to grasp at it or make it permanent. You don't have to go from unpleasant feeling to aversion. You can acknowledge the unpleasantness without needing to push it away or make it wrong. There's a story about a Zen master named Bankei who lived in 17th century Japan. He was known for his direct, simple teaching style. One day, a student came to him complaining about his anger. "Master," he said, "I have a terrible temper. It's ruining my relationships and my peace of mind. Can you help me get rid of it?" Bankei looked at him with interest and said, "That sounds serious. Show me this temper of yours. Bring it out right now so I can see it." The student was confused. "I can't show it to you right now. It only comes up when someone provokes me." Bankei smiled. "So it's not always with you. It comes and goes depending on conditions. Then how can it be your true nature? It's just something that arises temporarily based on circumstances." This is such a profound teaching about the nature of phenomena. Our anger, our anxiety, our desires, they're not solid, permanent things. They're events that arise based on conditions, based on contact at the sense bases, based on how we relate to our experience. And if they arise based on conditions, they can also cease when those conditions change. You're not stuck with your patterns forever. You can learn to work with them skillfully. Let me share a practice you can try right now, wherever you are. Just pause for a moment and notice what you're seeing. Don't analyze it. Don't think about it. Just see. Notice the colors, the shapes, the light and shadow. Now, notice. Is there any feeling tone associated with what you're seeing? Pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? And notice, is there any craving or aversion arising? Any urge to look at something else or to hold on to what you're seeing? Just observe this whole process with curiosity and kindness. Now do the same with hearing. What sounds are present right now? Maybe traffic outside, maybe the hum of electronics, maybe silence. Notice the sounds, notice the feeling tone, notice any reactivity. You're not trying to change anything. You're just observing the phenomena of sensory experience with clear awareness. This is the practice. This is how you develop wisdom. Not by reading books or accumulating knowledge, but by directly observing your own experience with precision and care. The Buddha said that this kind of observation leads to disenchantment, not in a negative sense, but in the sense of seeing through the illusion. You're no longer enchanted by the spell of believing that happiness lies in getting what you want through your senses. You're seeing the whole process clearly, and in that clarity, you're free. Another crucial aspect of contemplating phenomena is observing what the Buddha called the Four Noble Truths in your direct experience. You've probably heard of the Four Noble Truths. They're the foundation of Buddhist teaching, but often they're presented as philosophical concepts, as ideas to believe in. The contemplation of phenomena invites us to see them as living realities in our moment-to-moment experience. The first noble truth is that there is suffering, or more accurately, unsatisfactoriness. The Pali word is dukkha, and it includes everything from intense pain to subtle dissatisfaction, from obvious suffering to the vague sense that something's not quite right. When you practice contemplating phenomena, you're not looking for suffering in a morbid way. You're simply acknowledging it when it's present. You're being honest about your experience. And here's what's interesting. Most of us spend enormous energy trying to avoid acknowledging suffering. We distract ourselves. We numb ourselves. We pretend everything's fine when it's not. But the Buddha's invitation is radical in its simplicity. Just see it. Just acknowledge it. There's suffering here. There's dissatisfaction. There's struggle. And in that simple acknowledgement, without drama, without making it into a big story, something begins to shift. The second noble truth is that suffering has a cause. And that cause is craving, clinging, the constant grasping after pleasure and pushing away pain. When you contemplate phenomena, you start to see this cause in action. You see how the mind reaches for what it wants and recoils from what it doesn't want, over and over, thousands of times a day. You see how this constant reaching and recoiling creates tension, stress, suffering. I'll give you a personal example. I used to check my email constantly, dozens of times a day, and every time I checked, there was this little spike of anticipation, this hoping for something good, something exciting, and usually there was nothing, just routine messages or spam, and there would be this tiny disappointment, this subtle letdown. I never really noticed this pattern until I started practicing contemplation of phenomena. Then I could see it clearly. The craving for stimulation, the disappointment when it didn't come, the immediate impulse to check again. It was exhausting, and I'd been doing it unconsciously for years. Once I saw the pattern clearly, I didn't have to force myself to stop checking email. The behavior naturally began to change because I understood the suffering it was creating. I could feel the craving arise and choose not to act on it. I could sit with the restlessness instead of immediately reaching for my phone. This is the power of clear seeing. It transforms behavior from the inside out. The third noble truth is that there is an end to suffering, that liberation is possible, and this isn't just a promise for some future time. You can taste it right now. Every time you see a craving arise and choose not to act on it, that's a moment of freedom. Every time you feel aversion and choose to stay present with the discomfort rather than running away, that's liberation. Every time you recognize a thought as just a thought rather than absolute truth, that's the end of suffering in that moment. The fourth noble truth is the path that leads to the end of suffering, and it includes all the practices we've been discussing: mindfulness, clear comprehension, investigation, ethical conduct, meditation. It's not a linear path where you complete one step and move to the next. It's more like a spiral, where you keep returning to the same themes at deeper and deeper levels of understanding. There's a teaching from the Zen tradition that I love. It says, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities of life don't change. You still have to do the dishes, go to work, deal with difficult people, face challenges, but your relationship to all of it transforms completely. You're no longer lost in the drama. You're present, clear, free, even in the midst of ordinary life. This is what the contemplation of phenomena offers you. Not an escape from life, but a complete transformation in how you meet life. You're learning to see the patterns, the principles, the truths that govern your experience. And in that seeing, you're finding a freedom that no external circumstance can give you or take away. Now, I want to address something important. Sometimes when people hear about contemplating suffering, about observing the unsatisfactory nature of experience, they think Buddhism is pessimistic or negative. But that's a complete misunderstanding. The Buddha wasn't a pessimist. He was a realist. He was simply acknowledging what's true, that life includes difficulty, that clinging causes suffering, that there's a way to be free. Think of it like going to a doctor. If you have a pain in your chest, you want the doctor to acknowledge it, to diagnose it accurately, not to pretend everything's fine. The Buddha was like a physician for the mind and heart. He diagnosed the disease of suffering, identified its cause, assured us that healing is possible, and prescribed the treatment. That's not pessimism. That's compassion and wisdom. And here's what's beautiful. As you practice contemplating phenomena, as you see more clearly how suffering is created, you also start to see how joy, peace, and love arise. You see the conditions that support well-being. You see that when you're present, when you're not caught in craving and aversion, there's a natural ease and happiness that's always available. It's not dependent on circumstances being perfect. It's the happiness of a clear, open, present mind. Let me share one more story before we continue. There was a Zen master named Ryokan who lived a very simple life in a small hut. One night, a thief broke in, but there was nothing to steal. Ryokan felt sorry for the thief, so he gave him his clothes and blanket. After the thief left, Ryokan sat naked in his hut, looking at the moon, and wrote a poem. The thief left it behind, the moon at my window. This is the fruit of practicing contemplation of phenomena. You see, Ryokan had so deeply understood the nature of phenomena, the impermanence of all things, the emptiness of possessions, that even being robbed couldn't disturb his peace. He could still see the beauty of the moon. He could still appreciate what remained. This isn't about becoming passive or letting people take advantage of you. It's about finding a freedom so deep that external circumstances can't shake your fundamental well-being. Now, there's one more crucial aspect of contemplating phenomena that we need to explore, and it's perhaps the most profound: the three characteristics of existence. The Buddha taught that all phenomena, without exception, share three qualities. Understanding these qualities at a deep, experiential level is what leads to genuine wisdom and liberation. The first characteristic is impermanence, or anicca in Pali. Everything changes, everything is in flux, nothing stays the same, not even for a moment. Now, intellectually, we all know this. We know that seasons change, that we get older, that nothing lasts forever. But knowing it intellectually and seeing it directly in your moment-to-moment experience are two completely different things. When you practice contemplating phenomena, you start to see impermanence everywhere. You see how a thought arises and dissolves. You see how an emotion peaks and fades. You see how a sensation in your body appears and disappears. You see how your mood shifts from moment to moment based on tiny changes in circumstance. And as you see this more and more clearly, something profound happens. You stop trying to make things permanent. You stop clinging so tightly to what you have, because you understand that it's already changing, already passing. There's a famous story about a Zen master who had a beautiful teacup that he treasured. A student once asked him, "Master, aren't you attached to that cup? Isn't attachment the source of suffering?" The master smiled and said, "For me, this cup is already broken. I enjoy it, I appreciate its beauty, but I know that one day it will fall and shatter. So, when that day comes, I will simply say, 'Of course.'" This is wisdom, not detachment in the sense of not caring, but a deep understanding of impermanence that allows you to enjoy things fully without clinging to them desperately. Think about your own life. How much suffering comes from wanting things to stay the same, wanting your children to stay young, wanting your body to stay healthy and strong, wanting your relationship to stay in that honeymoon phase, wanting your career to stay secure and predictable. But life doesn't work that way. Everything changes. And when we fight against that fundamental truth, we suffer. When we accept it, when we see it clearly, we can flow with life instead of constantly fighting against it. The second characteristic is suffering or unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. We've already talked about this, but it's worth going deeper. The Buddha wasn't saying that everything is suffering in the sense of being painful. He was saying that everything conditioned, everything that arises and passes, everything that depends on causes and conditions, is ultimately unsatisfactory if we're looking to it for permanent happiness or security. Think about the best meal you've ever eaten. Wasn't it wonderful? But did it provide lasting satisfaction? No, a few hours later you were hungry again. Think about the most exciting purchase you've ever made. Wasn't it thrilling? But did that thrill last? Or did it fade, leaving you looking for the next thing? This isn't to say we shouldn't enjoy meals or make purchases. It's to say we shouldn't expect them to provide the deep, lasting fulfillment we're really seeking. When you contemplate phenomena with this understanding, you start to see how you've been looking for happiness in all the wrong places. You've been expecting impermanent things to provide permanent satisfaction. You've been expecting conditioned phenomena to provide unconditioned peace. And it's not that those things are bad or wrong, it's just that they can't deliver what you're asking of them. It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. But here's the good news. When you stop expecting external phenomena to provide ultimate satisfaction, you can actually enjoy them more. You can appreciate a beautiful sunset without needing to photograph it and post it online. You can enjoy a conversation without needing it to go a certain way. You can experience success without it defining your worth. You're free to engage fully with life because you're not demanding that life be something it's not. The third characteristic is non-self, or anatta. This is perhaps the most challenging concept to grasp, but it's also the most liberating. The Buddha taught that there is no permanent, unchanging self. What we call I, or me, is actually a constantly changing process. A flow of physical and mental phenomena arising and passing based on conditions. Now, this doesn't mean you don't exist. You're obviously here, reading this, having experiences. But what you are is not a fixed, solid entity. You're more like a river than a rock. A river is constantly changing. The water flowing through it is never the same from moment to moment. Yet we can still point to it and say, that's the Mississippi River. You're like that. You're a process, a flow, a pattern of phenomena arising and passing. When you contemplate phenomena deeply, you start to see this directly. You see that what you call my body is constantly changing, cells dying and being born, sensations arising and passing. You see that what you call my mind is just a stream of thoughts, emotions, perceptions, none of which last more than a moment. You see that what you call my personality is just a collection of habits and patterns, many of which you didn't consciously choose and all of which can change. So, where is this solid, permanent self you've been defending and protecting and worrying about all these years? When you look closely, you can't find it. There's just this flow of experience, this dance of phenomena, and the awareness that knows it all. And this realization, far from being scary or nihilistic, is incredibly freeing. Think about how much energy you spend trying to protect and defend your self-image, trying to look good, to be right, to maintain a certain identity. What if you could let all that go? What if you could simply be present, responding authentically to each moment without the burden of maintaining a fixed self? That's the freedom that comes from understanding non-self. There's a wonderful teaching from Shunryu Suzuki, the Zen master who brought Zen to America. He said, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind there are few." When you're identified with a fixed self, with being a certain kind of person, your possibilities are limited. You think, I'm not the kind of person who does that, or that's not who I am. But when you see through the illusion of a fixed self, every moment is fresh. Every moment is an opportunity to respond with wisdom and compassion, unconstrained by past patterns. Let me give you a practical example of how this works in daily life. Imagine someone criticizes you. If you're identified with a fixed self, that criticism feels like an attack on who you are. You get defensive, you feel hurt, you might lash out or withdraw. But if you've been practicing contemplation of phenomena, if you understand non-self, you can see the criticism as just information, just phenomena arising. You can consider whether there's truth in it without taking it as a judgment of your fundamental worth. You can respond skillfully without being caught in reactivity. This is what the Buddha meant when he taught about contemplating phenomena. You're seeing through the illusions that cause suffering. You're seeing impermanence, so you stop clinging. You're seeing unsatisfactoriness, so you stop expecting the impossible from conditioned things. You're seeing non-self, so you stop defending and protecting something that was never solid to begin with. Now, I know this might sound abstract or philosophical, but I want to emphasize again, this is not about belief or intellectual understanding. This is about direct seeing, about investigating your own experience with honesty and precision. The Buddha wasn't asking you to believe what he said. He was inviting you to look for yourself and see if it's true. There's a famous teaching where the Buddha said, "Don't accept my words out of respect for me. Test them as you would test gold by burning, cutting, and rubbing it. Only then should you accept them." This is the scientific spirit of Buddhism. Don't believe it because it sounds nice or because some ancient teacher said it. Investigate it yourself. Look at your own experience. See if it's true. And this is where your practice becomes deeply personal and powerful. You're not following someone else's path. You're discovering your own truth through direct investigation. You're becoming your own teacher, your own guide. Yes, you learn from others, you receive instruction and support, but ultimately, the wisdom has to arise from your own seeing, your own understanding. So, how do you actually practice this? How do you develop this capacity to contemplate phenomena in your daily life? It starts with intention. You make a commitment to wake up, to see clearly, to understand the nature of your experience. And then you practice consistently, patiently, with kindness toward yourself. You might start with formal meditation, sitting quietly and observing the arising and passing of phenomena. You watch thoughts come and go. You notice sensations appear and disappear. You observe emotions peak and fade. You're not trying to control any of it. You're just watching, with the same interested attention you might give to clouds passing through the sky or waves rolling onto a beach. But the practice doesn't end when you get up from your meditation cushion. You bring that same quality of awareness into your daily activities. When you're washing dishes, you're fully present with the sensations of warm water, the smell of soap, the sight of bubbles. When you're talking with someone, you're aware of the thoughts and emotions arising in you, the impulses to interrupt or defend or impress. When you're stuck in traffic, you're observing the frustration, the impatience, the stories your mind tells about how things should be different. And gradually, over time, something shifts. You start to see patterns you never noticed before. You start to catch yourself in old habits before they fully take hold. You start to respond with wisdom instead of reacting from conditioning. You start to taste freedom in moments where you used to only experience struggle. Before we close, I want to leave you with one final story. There was a Zen master named Ikkyu who was known for his unconventional teaching methods. One day, a wealthy patron came to him and asked for a piece of calligraphy to hang in his home, something profound and inspiring. Ikkyu took his brush and wrote just one word: attention. The patron was disappointed. Is that all? Can you add something more? So Ikkyu wrote, attention, attention. The patron was getting frustrated. That's still not very profound. Can you elaborate? So Ikkyu wrote, attention, attention, attention. Finally, the patron asked, what does this word attention mean anyway? And Ikkyu replied, attention means attention. This is the essence of contemplating phenomena. It's not complicated, it's not mystical, it's simply paying attention, bringing clear awareness to your experience, seeing what's actually here rather than being lost in your thoughts about it. Attention means attention. Presence means presence. Awareness means awareness. And in that simple, direct seeing, everything changes. Not because you've acquired some special knowledge or achieved some extraordinary state, but because you've finally stopped running from your own life. You've stopped trying to be somewhere else, someone else. You've come home to this moment, to this breath, to this precious, fleeting, beautiful experience of being alive. So, I invite you to practice. Start today. Start right now. Bring attention to your experience. Notice what's arising. Investigate with curiosity. See the impermanence, the unsatisfactoriness, the absence of a fixed self. And in that seeing, discover the freedom that's been available all along, hidden in plain sight, waiting for you to simply wake up and recognize it. Thank you so much for being here with me on this journey. If this video has touched you or helped you in some way, please share it with someone who might benefit. Leave a comment sharing your own insights and experiences. Subscribe to the channel so we can continue exploring these profound teachings together. And most importantly, practice. Take what resonates with you and apply it in your own life. That's where the real transformation happens, not in watching videos or reading books, but in the direct application of wisdom to your moment-to-moment experience. Remember, the Buddha's final words were, "Strive on with diligence," not with stress, not with strain, but with steady, patient effort. Keep practicing, keep investigating, keep waking up. The path is here, the truth is here, the freedom is here. All that's required is your attention, your commitment, and your willingness to see clearly. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be free. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.